Hi, welcome to the quiz. This very quiz can be done on quizalto.com, where you'll be able to get instant feedback with detailed answers and explanations. The link is in the description below. Quizalto has an extensive library of quizzes you can take for free, and we also have an impressive number of premium quizzes for more advanced levels. As you take quizzes, Quizalto helps you track your progress over time. If our quizzes are not enough for you, you can even create your own quizzes using AI, and they don't even have to be about AWS products. Okay, let's get started. Good luck. What is the benefit of using Amazon API Gateway as a front-end for AWS Lambda functions? It allows you to expose the Lambda functions as RESTful APIs. It provides cost estimates for Lambda function execution. It automatically scales Lambda functions based on usage. It encrypts the Lambda function code. What is the function of API Gateway mapping templates? To establish virtual private networks for API traffic. To create interactive API documentation. To transform incoming requests to a format that your backend can process. To cache API responses. What is the purpose of API Gateway usage plans? To enable customers to access and monetize your APIs. To enable remote access to API Gateway configurations. To automate deployment processes for APIs. To monitor server performance. What is the purpose of using API Gateway Lambda proxies? To increase API Gateway throughput. To manage API Gateway access control. To pass the request data to a Lambda function for processing. To automate API documentation generation. What is the main purpose of API Gateway usage plans? To enable customers to access and monetize your APIs. To monitor server performance. To enable remote access to API Gateway configurations. To automate deployment processes for APIs. What is the purpose of API Gateway resource policies? To control API Gateway pricing. To control access to API methods based on IP address or HTTP method. To automate API deployment. To improve API performance. What is the function of API Gateway API keys? To enable multi-region replication. To manage client-side encryption. To control and track API usage. To automate API deployments. What is the function of the Amazon API Gateway Developer Portal? Sends alerts for API performance issues. Automates API Gateway deployments. Controls API Gateway billing. Allows API consumers to discover and test APIs. What is the benefit of using Amazon API Gateway as a front-end for AWS Lambda functions? It allows you to expose the Lambda functions as RESTful APIs. It encrypts the Lambda function code. It automatically scales Lambda functions based on usage. It provides cost estimates for Lambda function execution. What is the main function of Amazon API Gateway usage plans? To automate deployment processes. To manage database connections. To enable API monetization and usage tracking. To limit API deployment to specific regions. What is the main purpose of API Gateway resource policies? To automate server provisioning. To manage cost allocation tags for APIs. To control access to APIs at the resource level. To periodically back up API configurations. What is the benefit of API Gateway Lambda integrations? Optimize database performance. Seamlessly integrate API Gateway with Lambda functions. Encrypt API responses. Control API Gateway caching. What is the benefit of using OpenAPI for API Gateway documentation? Standardized documentation format for APIs. Automate API deployments. Control API Gateway pricing. Optimize API latency. What is the key benefit of using Amazon API Gateway for developers? Reduce cloud storage costs. Simplify the process of creating and maintaining APIs. Enable serverless computing. Automate server monitoring. Why would you use API Gateway CloudWatch metrics and logging? To optimize database performance. To encrypt API responses. To increase API Gateway availability. To monitor API performance and troubleshoot issues. What is the purpose of configuring API Gateway as a WebSocket API route manager? To define how WebSocket messages should be handled and routed within your API. To automatically generate API documentation. To restrict API usage based on location. To automatically scale API resources. What is the primary benefit of using Amazon API Gateway as an HTTP proxy for backend services? It compresses API responses. It automatically restarts backend services. It encrypts all API traffic. It allows you to expose legacy systems as modern APIs. What is the main advantage of using API Gateway stage variables? To customize API deployment settings without redeploying the API. To filter API responses. To automatically scale API resources. To encrypt API request payloads. What is the purpose of API Gateway usage plans? To automate deployment processes for APIs. To monitor server performance. To enable remote access to API gateway configurations. To enable customers to access and monetize your APIs. What is an API gateway in the context of AWS? Maintain. A service that makes it easy for developers to create, monitor, publish. What is the benefit of using Amazon API Gateway to deploy WebSocket APIs? Minimizing reduction latency for API requests. Automatically scaling API resources based on usage. Securing API endpoints using VPNs. Facilitating real-time communication between clients and back-end services. What is an API Gateway Authorizer responsible for? Optimize database performance. Control the SSL certificates for the API. Encrypt API responses. Verify the identity of the API consumer. What is the purpose of the Amazon API Gateway WebSocket API feature? To enable real-time two-way communication between clients and the back-end services. To manage API Gateway access control. To automate API deployments. To control API Gateway pricing. What is the benefit of using Amazon API Gateway caching? Improves API latency and reduces back-end load. Increases API complexity. Provides better error handling. Enables automatic code deployment. What functionality does the Amazon API Gateway Post method provide? Allows clients to delete resources. Allows clients to create new resources. Allows clients to retrieve resources. Allows clients to update existing resources. And that's a wrap. Thanks to everyone who participated. Remember, you can answer along on quizalto.com, where you can keep track of your progress and find much more quizzes. We hope you had a fun and challenging time. Until next time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more. Hit the bell icon to be notified as soon as we upload. Please leave a comment if you have any thoughts or suggestions, and if you think this video is worth sharing with someone who could benefit from it, please forward a link to them. See you next time. Thanks for watching.